Good morning, boys. I posted the science lesson. Okay. I want you guys to pay really close attention to all the notes that I took throughout the chapter, or through the lesson, I should say. Ocean water is salt water. That's going to be on your test, okay? You have to know that you can find the fresh water in rivers and lakes, okay? For the quiz, see, I made little notes with stars on the sides and stuff. These will show up on the quiz. Water is needed for life. Well, sometimes certain animals use their homes, use the water for their homes, like whales, okay? This is also going to be on your test. Most of Earth's fresh water is frozen in glaciers, okay? Just pointing out a lot of the stuff that's going to be on your test and quiz. I don't want you to overlook it. Alright, it's important to know. It says that water exists as a solid, liquid, or gas. When water is a solid, that's ice. When water is a liquid, it's just a liquid, okay? That's the water we drink, the water we shower with, we brush our teeth, we wash our hands. Water vapor is a gas, okay? Same thing here. I labeled it so you can remember that water vapor is a gas, liquid water, and then ice would be the solid. Alright? Oh, and most of Earth's frozen water, so solids, would be found in glaciers and icebergs. It says here where you can find the liquid water, and then water vapor is in the air. Okay. There's a lot of notes on this page. It's important to know that when water melts, it goes from, I made a little note here for you. See, when water melts, it goes from a solid, like ice, to a liquid. Okay? And then when it freezes, it goes from a liquid to solid. And these two things are the opposites. Okay? So that's why they say the reverse of melting is freezing. So the opposite of melting is freezing. Okay? Evaporation is when water goes from a liquid to a gas. Okay? So it goes, for example, it goes from the ocean, and then it uses the sun's energy, right? The sun's energy turns that liquid water into water vapor, which is the gas. Okay? I put a note here. It says water droplets on the outside of a cup are caused by condensation. That's on the quiz. Okay? Another thing here. After a snowman melts, right? When your snowman melts, you start to see the water on the ground around it. That water will evaporate. Okay? That's on your quiz. Okay? For these, when it's asking you to label them evaporation or condensation, just look at what the change is. So wet footprints is a liquid, and it's going to change into water vapor. So if it goes from a liquid to a gas, that's evaporation. Here, it started out as water vapor. That's a gas, right? And when a gas cools, it ends up forming water droplets. So it goes from a gas to a liquid, and that's condensation. And over here, same thing. You go from water vapor, so that's a gas, and it forms water droplets, which is a liquid. So gas to a liquid, condensation. And I just reminded you down here that water vapor is a gas and water droplets is a liquid. Over here, I wanted you to underline the cause. So the sun heats the ocean, that's a cause. So what happens because of that? So because the sun is heating up the ocean, the water will evaporate and become a gas, right? Water vapor, that's the effect. Cause, if, remember that's a signal word, if it loses enough heat energy, okay, it condenses to form water droplets. So remember that when water vapor rises, it's cooling down. The higher up you go, the colder the temperatures get. So that's going to cause it to lose the heat, and then it's going to end up condensing and forming the water droplets, which is a liquid. Precipitation, that's the rain, sleet, snow, or hail, okay? So it's the form of water as it falls back to earth. So if you look at this, rain is a liquid, right? But sleet is a mix of both the liquid and solid. It's like rain and snow mixed together, or ice. Snow and hail is solid, right? Because it doesn't take the form of whatever container you put it in. The water cycle, okay? This whole page tells you about the water cycle. There's a question on one of the quizzes, I believe, or the test. I think it was the quiz. And it tells you what shape, if you're going to make the water cycle, what shape is the best shape to use. And that's going to be a circle, okay? Because the arrows are constantly moving in a circle. When you look at the word water cycle, right? So it's basically, this reminds you of the word recycle. Because the water is recycling, it's being used again. So let's look at the water cycle. So the first thing in the water cycle is that water evaporates, right? So the whole water cycle needs the sun's energy. Without the sun's energy, nothing's gonna happen, right? So the sun's energy warms up the water, right, on Earth, and that water is gonna evaporate. It's gonna turn from a liquid to a gas, all right? And what happens is, the higher up that water vapor goes, that gas, it starts to get colder, right? And when it cools down, it forms, it condenses, right? And when it condenses, it's starting to form like little water droplets. And remember, we learned in one of those reading passages, and you guys wrote an essay about it for me back in school. I think it was like 2 months ago. When the more water droplets you have, they start to bump into each other, right? And once that cloud gets too heavy, it's going to fall back down, right? So here's our precipitation. It's going to fall back down as either rain or snow, and that's going to depend on the temperature in the atmosphere, right? So if it's cold temperatures, the water is going to fall back down as either snow, or ice, for example, like sleet or whatever. And then if it's warmer temperatures, it'll fall back down as rain. Okay? So, here it's telling you that some precipitation soaks into the ground. That was groundwater. We learned about it earlier in the lesson. And then it can also run over the ground and flow into streams, rivers, lakes, and eventually the ocean. Okay, so it can run down the mountain. See here? So it falls down the mountain and it goes into the streams and stuff. And the streams and rivers usually end up connecting back into the ocean. Okay? Okay, and then these pages are homework as usual. 298, 299, 300, 301, and 302. Okay? So that's for today. But I also want to go over your math quiz. Not math quiz, I'm sorry, the math review sheet. Let's look at the math review that you guys did last night for me. So that if any of you guys had any questions, this was our review sheet. Okay? Number 1, how many right angles does this shape appear to have? Okay, so another little trick about figuring out if it's a right angle. I noticed that some of you guys said that this angle right here was a right angle. It's not a right angle, okay? So if you look here, you see how the lines here and here come straight? So that kind of, and this line as well is also straight. That kind of is a hint that these are right angles. Okay? But notice that this line here is slants. So whenever you have like a slanting line, that's definitely not going to give you a right angle, okay? So I'm going to take the corner of this paper and I'm going to line it up with one of the lines. okay? So you see how this line, this side of the shape is lined up with my piece of paper? It's like literally right on the edge. But then the other line, it starts with the paper, but then it starts to go away, right? You see how there's space between the paper and the line? That means it is not a right angle. It's greater than a right angle. So this was greater than. And then, again, I'm going to line up my paper with one of the sides. So you see how it's lined up right on the edge of my paper? And then the second one, it starts out with my paper, but then it ends up going under the paper. So that means it's less than a right angle. Okay? So how many right angles does the shape appear to have? 2. Carrie draws a quadrilateral with 4 sides of equal length. Which quadrilateral does Carrie draw? Okay? 4 sides of equal length. And we know that a quadrilateral is a polygon with 4 sides, right? So, when I look at A, it's a rectangle, right? And it has 2 pairs of sides of equal length, but these 2 sides are shorter, okay? So it's not A. B, I see a rhombus, but again, these 2 sides are longer than these 2 sides, so it's not B. C gives us a square, and we know that a square, all the sides are the same length, so maybe. D is a trapezoid, and it's definitely not the same length sides, right? So it's not D. We have C. 3. Helen drew the shape. Which word best describes the shape Helen drew? Okay, so I see it has 2 pairs of parallel sides, 4 right angles, right? And that would be a rectangle. Okay, a rhombus, it definitely isn't a rhombus or a square because they have all the same length sides. And then it's not a trapezoid because a trapezoid only has 1 pair of parallel sides. 4. Patrick used a Venn diagram to sort shapes. Which shape should he place into the left circle of the diagram? So looking at the left circle, it says polygons with right angles. Alright, so I'm looking here. It could be A. There's a right angle for this triangle, and I know that a triangle is a polygon. B does not have any right angles. C does not have any right angles, and D does not have any right angles. So the key here was right angles, okay? That was A. Number 5. Which shape is not a polygon? What is a polygon, guys? It's a closed shape, right? Made up of line segments. That connect at their endpoints. Okay? So, A is a closed shape, right? Made up of line segments that meet. B, it is not closed because it does not start and end at the same point. So, B is not a polygon. Jamie drew the shape. What shape did Jamie draw? So a line, we know it'll keep on going, right? A line segment is a line that has 2 endpoints. A point is just that one little spot. It's a point in like a certain location. A ray is a line, right? And it has 1 endpoint and it continues in 1 direction. Okay, so he drew a line segment. How many pairs of parallel sides does this quadrilateral appear to have? Okay, these 2 lines will never cross or meet. So that's parallel. But when you look at these two lines, you see how the top line kind of slants? Well, think about it. If you were to continue this line, okay, if we were to continue it, and then we continued this one, they would eventually cross or meet, right? So it's only one pair of parallel lines. Tad divides a rhombus into equal parts to show 1/2. Okay? Equal parts. That means that each part is the same size. To show 1/2. Okay? Remember that the denominator tells us the number of parts that a shape is divided into. So A has 4 parts, so it's definitely not A, because we're looking for something into 2. B has 2 parts, but notice that this part and this part are not the same size, so they're not equal. So this one was 4ths, so that's not it. These ones do not have equal parts. For C, there are 3 equal parts, so that's 1/3, so that's not it. And for D, we have 2 equal parts and they're both the same size, so we do have halves here. And we're looking to show 1/2, so D is correct. Number 9. Which triangle appears to have 3 angles less than a right angle? Okay, so just by looking at B, I know it's not B because B has a right angle and they want less than a right angle. Okay, C. When I look here, and it looks like a right angle to me, but I'm not 100% sure. So I take the corner of my paper and I'm going to line it up with the angle. So one of the sides is lined up with my paper exactly, right? And then the other one, it starts with my paper on the corner, but then by the time we get over here, you notice how it went away from the paper. So this angle is greater than a right angle. That was greater. And these two are less than a right angle. So it's not C. When you look at D, same thing. This angle is greater and less than a right angle, less than a right angle. So it's not D. A. All 3 of these are less than a right angle, okay? A. And make sure you pay attention to what they're looking for. They said less than. 10. Lionel used craft sticks to make a polygon with 5 sides. A polygon with 5 sides is called a pentagon. Okay? Look at the shape, which describes the marked angle. Again, take the corner of this paper, okay? We take the corner of this paper, we're going to line it up exactly with the angle. So I take the corner of the paper and I put it on the corner, there. You see how this line here is lined up exactly with my paper. Then when you look at the other line segment, it's going away from my paper, right? It's not against the paper like this. So that means if this line here was exactly against my paper like this, that would be a right angle. But because it goes away from the paper, that means it is greater than, okay? So B. 12. Henry drew a quadrilateral, which I know is 4 sides, with 4 right angles and 2 pairs of sides of equal length. What shape did he draw? So it's going to have 4 right angles, and it's not saying that all the sides are the same length, right? It's saying that only 2. So these 2 are the same length, and then these 2 are the same length. What shape did he draw? It's definitely not a hexagon because that has 6 sides. It's not a pentagon because a pentagon has 5 sides, right? it's not a trapezoid because a trapezoid does not have 4 right angles. The only one that would make sense is C. Okay? 13. Brian drew a triangle that has one angle greater than a right angle and 0 sides of equal length. Okay? Which shows Brian's triangle? A has 3 angles less than a right angle, so it's not A. B, all 3 of these angles are also less than a right angle, but notice too that A has 2 sides of equal length. These 2 sides are the same length, and B, these 2 sides are the same length. C has 1 right angle, okay, but they want something greater than, and none of these sides are the same length, so but it's not C because they want 1 angle greater than. D, this angle is greater than a right angle, and none of these sides are the same length. So D. Trying to turn the page. Okay. 14. Pete drew the shape. Write open or closed to describe Pete's shape. Now I know that if a shape is closed, it will start and end at the same point. So if I start at this point and I trace the shape, does it start and end at the same point? Yes, it does. So it is closed. 15. Evan drew the shape. Which word best describes Evan's quadrilateral? Rectangle, rhombus, square, or trapezoid? Now, a rectangle has 4 right angles, right? This is a right angle. This is a right angle. Okay? These 2 angles are not right angles. Just looking at it, I can tell that this is greater than a right angle, and this one is, okay, so the line went under the paper, so that's less. So this was greater than a right angle, and this was less than a right angle. So not a rectangle. Is it a rhombus? No, because not all the sides are the same length. Is it a square? No, because not all the sides are the same length, and it doesn't have 4 right angles. So the only one it could be is a trapezoid. And we know that a trapezoid only has 1 pair of parallel sides, and this shape has 1 pair of parallel sides, right? These 2 sides are parallel. 16. Kylie used line segments to draw a shape. Look at the dashed lines of her shape. Tell if the sides appear to be intersecting, which means that the lines will cross or meet, perpendicular, which means that when the lines cross or meet, they form a right angle, or parallel, which means the lines will never cross or meet. Okay? So we know that they're not parallel because they definitely touch, right? They meet right here. So they're intersecting, but does this form a right angle? No, right? This is less than a right angle. So that means the lines are only intersecting. Kenji uses a Venn diagram to sort shapes. Write a label he could use for circle A. So when I'm looking here, we have quadrilaterals, right? And we know that a quadrilateral is 4 sides. And what I notice here is that the shapes in the middle are quadrilaterals, and they have right angles. Okay? I notice that all of these are right angles. When I look at A, though, some of these shapes, so this, for example, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides and 3 sides. Okay? But I noticed that they're all closed plane shapes made up of line segments that meet at their endpoints. So these are all polygons, right? And these are also polygons. They're polygons. But what do you notice about all of them? What do they have? They all had at least one right angle, right? So polygons with right angles. Okay, and notice that the shapes in the middle are rectangle and square. They're also polygons, they're also quadrilaterals, and they also have right angles. That's why they can go in the middle. Okay. 18. Wendy used felt shapes to make a pattern. Each shape has 5 angles. Write the name of the shape Wendy used. We know that shapes have the same number of angles and sides. So if it has 5 angles, that means it has 5 line segments, right? So that would make it a pentagon. 19. Reese divided the hexagon into equal parts that represent 1/6 of the whole area. Remember, when they say 1/6, the denominator tells us the number of equal parts. Okay? So draw lines to show how he divided the hexagon. So we need 6 equal parts. I broke it in half. Okay? And then I like to make an X. So from this corner to this corner, and that corner to that corner. Okay? Six equal parts, and then each part represents 1/6. Caden made a group with triangles A, B, and C. How are the angles in triangles A, B, and C are alike? They all have, right? They all have at least one right angle. How about the other angles? Notice this is less than a right angle, and this is a right angle. So I put an R. We have one right angle here. This is less than. This is less than. This is a right angle, and these two are less than. So they all have one right angle. If you just put that, I would have accepted it, okay? And you could have also added they all have one right angle and 2 angles less than a right angle. Jacob drew this triangle. Write numbers to complete statements to describe the angles in Jacob's triangle. The triangle has blank right angles. Let's look at them before we even start all that. You take the corner of your paper, again, and we're going to line it up with each angle. So if I'm looking at this angle first, right here in the corner, I'm going to line up the paper there. Okay. So do you see how this line lines up with the paper? That's what we want. Sorry, I'm trying to do this and hold the camera at the same time. There. And this other line, the line over here, it's hard to do, right here, it's going away from our paper, right? It doesn't stay against the paper like this. It's going away from it. So that means that line, that angle is greater than. Okay? If I take my paper and I put it, if we line it up with this angle here, okay? Notice how this line here, right here, is going against my paper. It lines up with it. And the second line goes underneath the paper. That means it's less than. And the third angle, again, if I take the corner of my paper and I line it up with the angle, you can see how this line here lines up with the paper, but the second line segment goes underneath the paper. That means that is also less than. Okay, so how many right angles did we have? 0. How many angles greater than a right angle did we have? 1. How many angles less than a right angle? 1, 2. Okay. (22) Sawyer uses line segments to draw a shape. Write how many line segments Sawyer's shape has. Okay? So I'm going to label the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Write how many line segments he has. We have 6 line segments. 23. Pedro made the shape for his math project. Which word best describes Pedro's quadrilateral? Square or rectangle? So a square has 4 sides of equal length. This does not have all the sides the same length, right? A rectangle has 2 pairs of sides of equal length and 4 right angles. So these 2 sides are the same length. These 2 sides are the same length. So this shape is a rectangle. 24. Josie drew a quadrilateral on grid paper. The quadrilateral has exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. And I know quadrilateral is 4 sides, right? Draw the quadrilateral that could be Josie's on Josie's grid. Okay, so we needed a 4-sided shape with 1 pair of parallel sides. That is a trapezoid. You can draw it different ways. You can draw it like this. Right? You could have drawn it like let me try to remember. And this line will also be straight. Okay, so then these 2 sides are parallel, and these 2 sides are parallel. You could have drew either way. Tara used line segments to draw the shape. Look at the dashed lines of her shape. Tell if they appear to be intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel. So they do not cross or meet, right? They'll never touch each other if we keep going, so they are parallel. All right. Number 26. Brenton and Katie used toothpicks to build this model of a polygon. Look at the 2 dashed lines shown. Okay? Brenton said the 2 sides are parallel. Katie said the 2 sides are intersecting. Which student is correct? Can both students be correct? Explain your answer. Okay, so if the 2 lines never cross or meet, they are parallel, which is what Brenton said. So Brenton is correct. Brenton is correct. Can both students be correct? They cannot both be correct, right? Because parallel lines never cross or meet. But intersecting lines do. (27) Aiden draws a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. Draw a different quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. Classify both quadrilaterals using one or more of the following terms: rhombus, square, rectangle, trapezoid. So what did Aiden draw? I do see four sides of equal length, right? But it's not considered a square because they're not four right angles. So this would be a rhombus. Okay? Now, depending on what you drew, you're going to have different answers for this one. So if you drew a square, you have to make sure that all the sides are the same length. So here's 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This one would be a square. If you drew a rectangle, you have to have two pairs of sides that are the same length. So for example, this side is 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and 3. Okay, again, so you notice here how I have two sides. These are 3 and 3, and these two sides are 5 and 5. So there's two pairs of parallel sides, and they're the same length. So this would be a rectangle. And then a trapezoid. Okay, trapezoid would be different. There you go. Trapezoid. One pair of parallel sides. Alright, so my quadrilateral depends on which one you drew. You could have wrote square, rectangle, or trapezoid. Compare and contrast the sides and angles in Aiden's quadrilateral and your quadrilateral. Now I'm not going to write anything here because it depends on what shape you drew. I'll go through each one though. If you drew a square, okay? If you drew a square, you would say my quadrilateral and Aiden's quadrilateral both have four sides of equal length. However, my quadrilateral has four right angles, and Aiden's quadrilateral has two angles greater than a right angle and two angles less than a right angle. These two are greater, and these two are less. Okay? If you drew a rectangle, you would say Aiden's quadrilateral has four sides of equal length. My quadrilateral has two pairs of sides of equal length. Okay, and again with the angles, my quadrilateral has four right angles, and Aiden's quadrilateral has two angles greater than a right angle and two angles less than a right angle. If you drew a trapezoid, you would say Aiden's quadrilateral has four sides of equal length. My quadrilateral has two sides that are the equal length, right? Depending on how you drew it, though. Maybe it has equal length, maybe it doesn't. Then you can say for the angles, my my quadrilateral and Aiden's quadrilateral both have two angles that are less than a right angle and two angles that are greater than a right angle. Okay? So this was the review for the test, which I will give you on Monday, inshallah. If you have any questions or anything like that, I want you to send me a message, and we can schedule maybe a one-on-one if you need me to do like a video chat and redo any lessons or anything like that. Maybe we can do it through WhatsApp, if anything, okay? Just let me know. Send me a message, because if you're not letting me know, I'm not going to know. All right? Have a nice day, boys.